Hello everybody, welcome to the weekly news podcast here at Sozine Classes. So let's get started. The four major articles we will be discussing in this week's news podcast are the herd immunity, the challenges in achieving the herd immunity for a country like India. The second one being the rat hole mining that is being practiced in the state of Meghalaya for the extraction of coal. The third one is the new employment scheme for the urban population that has been introduced, focusing specially for the women. And the name of the scheme is DUET, which is Decentralized Urban Employment Training. And the fourth article will be the rise of the artificial intelligence and its economy, especially keeping in mind the pandemic situation and the way artificial intelligence has helped in many countries like India. So the first article we will be discussing is about challenges in achieving herd immunity through vaccination. This has come on the 6th of December and this is useful for the General Studies paper 3. So let us understand what this author tells about the challenges that is there in achieving the herd immunity. On December 1st, the Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan had said that the government has spoken about the vaccination for the entire country. So looking at the vaccinations, the various pharmaceutical companies are undergoing phase 3 of the vaccination, which is trials where safety of the vaccine is being tested. And in this context, Dr. Balaram Bhargavan, the Director General of the ICMR tells if we are able to vaccine the critical mass population and break the virus transmission, then we need not have to vaccine the entire population of our country, and through this we will be able to achieve the herd immunity. And in this context, the government of India has stated that the government is looking only for the partial vaccination as opposed in aiming for the universal immunization. The government says a critical mass of population can be vaccinated in order to attain herd immunity. What do you mean by herd immunity? It is a stage where a sufficient percentage of population has achieved immunity against a particular infection. This can be either through the natural course or through vaccination. So this way the government of India's COVID-19 vaccine strategy is either to partially vaccinate a critical mass population or to certain subset of the population. And the challenges the author argues about having partial vaccination in a country like India is to achieve herd immunity through partial vaccination. Experts say that 70% of the population should be vaccinated. And this is a logically challenge due to the population. This is logically a challenge due to the large amount of population India has, and which 70% of the population should be chosen for vaccination. Another challenge would be on how to choose the subset of the population and on what basis will the government choose this subset, because by universal popularization you mean you're promoting health and equity, and choosing 70% itself is not satisfying this very point of what subset to be chosen and the equity that is being promoted for universal immunization. And the third challenge the author is quoting is about whether choosing the high risk population or the low risk population. Despite the news, we are all well aware that the high risk population is very much in danger with the COVID-19. But we know that for a fact that we have a majority of the low risk population in our country. Majority of the population in our country is of the low risk population. So it is a task for the government to choose whether to give herd immunity, to give the vaccination for the high risk population or to choose the low risk population and give immunity. Another challenge would be whether to give vaccination for already infected people. That is, the people who have already been tested positive for the COVID-19, is it right choice for the government to pick the already infected people and give them vaccination? Because it is said that they will be having the antibodies for more than 3 months. In order to overcome such challenges, the government should ensure that choosing happens at almost the transparent manner, and everything the government, every step and action the government is taking in order to achieve the herd immunity has to be reported and has to be taken place in at most transparent manner. These were the points the author was discussing in this article about the challenges in facing herd immunity with the partial vaccination the government of India has decided to go ahead with. And few other points the author has discussed is about the uneven transmission. That is, the virus. What do we mean by uneven transmission? Is that, for instance, for herd immunity, in order to achieve herd immunity, the virus spread has to be well known and should be determined properly in the population. But whereas the COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2 virus spread exhibits the high level of uneven transmission, and this is the reason to have been the number of super spreading events where same infected individuals spread the virus to a very large population, and while most intent in individuals transmit the virus only to a few or to none. So because of the uneven transmission and the confusion in how the transmission is happening for this particular infection is also one of the challenges for the governments and for the pharmaceutical companies in order to come up with the right vaccination and achieve herd immunity. What is the ethical challenge the author is speaking about in achieving herd immunity for the government? So already the government has already made a list of high priority groups that will receive the vaccination in order to attain the herd immunity. But the choosing of these sections of the population that needs to be vaccinated will achieve herd immunity will be an ethically challenge for the government in order to satisfy the entire population, and being a democratic country and the world's largest democratic country, this will be an ethically challenging task for the government of India in order to choose the right population to be vaccinated to achieve the herd immunity. And for this, the government has to maintain a transparent process for making the priority setting decisions, and extremely important to maintain the trust in the vaccination plans. So this was all about the article, the challenges the author has mentioned in order to achieve herd immunity for a large population. It takes the government to have a transparent manner of the process in which they are choosing the population. So this was all about this article. Let's move on to the next article. So the next article we will be discussing in this week's news podcast was published on 7th of December. This is about the rat hole mining that is being practiced by the state of Meghalaya for the extraction of coal. Despite the NGT banning this rat hole mining in the year 2014, why are these Meghalayan populations still practicing? So before moving on to what this article speaks about, let me tell you that the coal mining in our country is spread in 3 different regions. That is the central Indian part, the central eastern Indian part of it, and the northeastern part of it. These cover the states like Chhattisgarh, Odisha, few parts of Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, etc. And the northeastern part of the coal mining is covered in states like Meghalaya and Assam. So the difference between the coal mining in these 2 regions is that the coal layers in the central and eastern part of our country are thick, and due to this, heavy machinery can be used in order to extract the coal mines and distribute them for their purposes around the country or the globe. But when it comes to the northeastern state, the coal mines here are very thin, and due to this, the heavy vehicles machinery cannot be sent to extract the coal mining, and there cannot. Tribes like Jaintia, Garo and Khasi tribes are the majority of the population in the state of Meghalaya, and since Meghalaya is a 6th scheduled state, lands where coal reserves are found are owned by these indigenous communities, and hence the ownership of these reserves lie with the individuals or the private companies. And these are the true factors that make the coal mining economically unviable, and hence the local communities develop their own technique called the rat hole mining technique. What does rat hole mining technique is? What is rat hole mining technique? A small and narrow tunnels along the usually along 3 to 4 feet long and high are dug and through which the workers enter and extract coal. This is supposed to be a very dangerous process, especially when there are heavy rains. Because when there are heavy rains, the water gets clogged in these tunnels and this gets very difficult for the movement of these extractors, workers working, and they get stuck in these tunnels and at times they also lose their lives. And this technique of mining is also hazardous to environmental conditions. So the National Green Tribunal has banned this rat hole mining in the year 2014, considering it to be unscientific and unhealthy. But despite the ban, the people of Meghalaya still continue to practice this due to the poor implementation of rules by the state government. In this way, this has become a great challenge for the government to control and stop the usage, the technique of rat hole mining for the people in Meghalaya. What are the major impacts of the rat hole mining? The major impacts of the rat hole mining are the water sources of many rivers, especially the Jaintia Hills, have turned acidic. So the water resources of many rivers have turned acidic. The water also has high concentration of sulfates, iron and toxic heavy metals. This shows the degraded quality of the water that is available in these rivers. And after the extraction of the coal, the roadside dumping of this coal is a major source of air, water and soil pollution in the states. And the off-road movement of these trucks, and keeping in mind this geographical location of the state and the off-road movement of these trucks and other heavy vehicles in these areas of coal transportation also adds to the ecological imbalance and environmental damage to these areas. So this way the author tries to tell us about the challenges of having been practiced the rat hole mining in a country like India. Now let's move on to the next article. The third article we will be discussing today, and the headlines of the article reads, "A duet for Indians' urban women." Duet is nothing but the short form of the scheme suggested by the author Jane Dries. This author is a prominent economist and a social scientist and an activist. This author has contributed to many previous successful schemes, the most important one being the Manrega. So in this column, the author suggests employment for the urban poor population, especially focusing women. So let us understand what this article is all about. Due to the COVID-19, this pandemic in the world around, it has directly affected the livelihood and social protection of the poor, especially the urban poor. Generally, there is this belief that the poor population of the urban areas are more secure than the rural poor, because it is easy for the urban poor to find their jobs and have a shift from one job to the other easily, be it rickshaw pulling or selling sacks, etc. So this way it was always believed that the poor living in the urban areas lifestyles are way better than the poor living in the rural areas. But in the recent times, due to the COVID situation and many other calamities like the floods, cyclones and the financial crisis has affected the lifestyle and the economy of these poor population living in the urban areas. So the government, in order to help these poor population, can undergo the National Food Security Act by food grain rations that are not taken by the people very far, but they can always try to have these National Food Security Ration Acts and provide food security for these poor. And the other way they can be helping out is the employment based support, which one way is doing more to these people. Providing employment would be doing more to these populations living in the urban areas. So under this model, the author suggests this the scheme called the Decentralized Urban Employment and Training Scheme, that is the DUET. Under this scheme, job stamps would be given to the workers who are willing to work for at a minimum wage, and these job stamps would be literally distributed to all public institutions like hotels, schools, public health, hospitals, health centers, museums, libraries, shelters, jails, office departments, railway stations, transport corporations and public sector enterprises, and the neighboring associations and urban local bodies. This job stamps is similar to the service voucher model that is being followed in Europe, where everybody having this voucher can easily get jobs in domestic households for their basic domestic household works. So this way, this scheme also suggests to have the job stamps, and these job stamps would be available at various public institutions, and whoever is willing to work for a basic and minimum wages can have these job stamps and get their work, go and get the jobs. And these institutions that have these stamps would be free to use these stamps for small, odd and different jobs or small projects for a short period of time, and they can, it is easy for them to use these job cards, stamps, to employ people for that particular duration of the time. And the wages that are being paid by the government would directly go to the accounts of the workers against the job stamps certified by their employers. The author says this approach would have various advantages like activating multiplicity of potential employers, the need for special staff facilitating and productive work. This would also reduce, because for example, if you look at few population, the government has already started teaching people and people to voluntarily get in and participate in the vaccine process. When the vaccine releases, you will have huge number of population to take part in giving these vaccines around the country. So the government has already started giving training to the people who are taking part in this vaccine distribution. So this way, the many such jobs which are for the temporary time-based period or short courses, this would help the job stamps would help these public institutions to hire people even if they are not skilled in that particular job. They would be trained for a brief period and would be given this employment. And this is always better of having no employment than having certain amount of employment for a small amount of wages. The present government, speaking about the job guarantees under the Employment Guarantee Acts, this DUET scheme would provide the first line of defense against this particular acts that the government is being promoting. And under this DUET, it is not mandatory that only the unskilled labor can be having these jobs, but also the skilled workers like masons, carpenters, electricians, people like these can also have these job cards and not just have their jobs in these sections, but also find jobs when they are not working in their particular skilled areas. They can also find other range of possible jobs and work using these job stamps. One other major important aspect in this scheme is that it promotes women, that is women first. Unlike the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which attains to 33% of women reservation, this act speaks about only utmost priority vote to women. So what is the difference between 33% and the utmost priority? Here, you only look for attaining this percentage and achieve this percentage, and after this is achieved, it depends on the government to either take women into the job sectors or no. But when it comes to the utmost priority, which means that despite the number of women available, the government, it is the responsibility of the institutions to choose women. All the women who are willing to work will be given jobs under this DUET scheme and they will get to work. So in order to have the participation of women and prioritize women employments, the work will be on the part-time basis and shift basis, wherein it becomes easy for the women to also take care of their households and also work. The author mentions about having two merits on prioritizing women under this scheme. The first one being it would reinforce the self-targeting feature of this duet, because women in relatively well-off households are unlikely to go and work. And this would promote women's general participation in the labor force. So these are the two major merits that the author is quoting under this scheme. According to the National Sample Survey data of the year 2019, only 20% of the women in the age group of 15 to 59 years spend time in employment related activities, which tells that a very less population of women work in our country. So quoting all these advantages and the manner in which the duet scheme might work, the author tells that having a trial attempt on bringing this duet scheme into the public would always be of a beneficiary factor. He tells, instead of pulling this scheme for the entire country, we can do it in small heads, like a few districts, pilot schemes, like selected districts or the municipalities, and try this scheme out. And there is nothing to lose under this scheme, is what the author tells. So keeping all this in mind, he wants the government to use this scheme and see the benefits of having this duet scheme, with focusing especially women and the poor urban population. So this was all about this article. Let's move on to the next article. The last article we will be discussing in this week's news podcast was given on 9th of December. And the headlines of the article reads, "The Rise of Artificial Intelligence Economy." In this article, the author tells us about the three focus areas India has to do in order to become the artificial intelligence powerhouse of the world. As we all know, the pandemic has taught us many lessons and opened our minds in new ways of doing things, including the understanding of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Over the past few years, India had made a significant rise in the artificial intelligence capability building, like the Niti Aayog's National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence, which identifies the healthcare professionals, medical researchers, agriculture, education, smart cities and infrastructures, transportation as focus areas for the artificial intelligence solutions for the social impact. So the algorithms of the artificial intelligence and machine learnings have played a major role in understanding and participating and curbing better rules for the pandemic situation we had recently had. And the government states that the statistics states that the internet consumption in our country has rose by 13% in this during the lockdown and post the lockdown period. So having the right initiatives and the right policies for improving the knowledge and the technology of artificial intelligence movement in the country would bring a great economy and boost the country's economies and bring it as a powerhouse for the world. The NASSCOM believes that the artificial intelligence can contribute to about $450 billion to about $500 billion for the GDP of our country by the year 2025. If the implementations of this artificial intelligence and machine learning is done in the appropriate manner. And the growing economy estimates that the artificial is estimated to create about 20 million technical job roles for our country. The artificial intelligence can also provide for the better governance and social impact. For example, in the recent COVID-19 situation, the government of Telangana has used the artificial intelligence. The police of the government of Telangana have used this artificial intelligence enabled automated number plates. So number plate recognitions. And this was used by them to catch the people who are violating. The state had successfully conducted its lockdowns and have achieved a great success in controlling the people moving around during the COVID-19 situation. And this The artificial intelligence will not only solve the problems but also will help us in finding answers to the problems of the complex social issues we have in our country. In order to achieve and become the artificial intelligence powerhouse of the country, the top priorities of India should be that the first and the foremost important priority of our country should be the talent development. As we all know that the number of people choosing artificial intelligence has increased from 40,000 to 72,000 over a year. But with the pace at which the artificial intelligence is gaining its importance, it is important for our country to have the talent development in the right way practiced. That is, it can have the right policies. The government can take the initiative in giving the right policies, choosing the right institutions to provide and give the technical knowledge of the artificial intelligence, and giving the right amount of projects and the framework for the people to achieve their knowledge and strengthen their knowledge in the artificial intelligence sector. And this should also focus on the speed at which the talent is being developed. So with the right amount and with the right steps taken by the government, and the speed at which they are choosing also plays a major role for a country like India to become the powerhouse of artificial intelligence around the world. As we all know, because with the growing amount of importance this artificial intelligence is creating, we would have a competition all around the world, and the speed at which we are improving our knowledge base is also matters for us to become the powerhouse in the world. We also need to have a balanced approach in the way we harness and utilize this data, and the robust legal framework that governs the data and services as the base for the ethical use of artificial intelligence should also be implemented. So in all these, one great challenge for the country would be in finding the right amount of data and the training. The right amount of training and the data that is to be provided in the artificial intelligence or the machine learning algorithms. So this was all about this article, speaking about the importance and the steps the country has to take in order to achieve and become the powerhouse, artificial intelligence powerhouse of the world. So the way our government is moving ahead looks promising, but it should also make sure that it does not go wrong in any situation, and it provides the right training, right amount of training in the right manner, practiced keeping in mind the ethical values and the ways in which the data can be misused. So if all these steps are taken care by the government of India and the right policies are being implemented, with the amount of technical knowledge and the population, with the amount of population of engineers we have in our country, it is easy for a country like India that produces huge number of engineers every year. It will be easy for us to achieve and provide knowledge to the maximum population in the speedy manner we can. Already initiatives like a separate branch of artificial intelligence course in engineering has been implemented, and colleges like BITS and IIITs have started courses in the artificial intelligence, and we also find many other small unrecognized institutions giving private trainings for such courses. But it would be of a great use if the government initiates and funds for such large scale training centers, and this would be a great opportunity for all the engineers coming out of their colleges to find jobs in the right manner. And this was all about the article, the rise of artificial intelligence economy article. So these were the 4 important articles we found in this week's news podcast. For more articles that are being discussed in the question and answer format, please visit to the Daily News Diary section in our website www.sozineclasses.com. And for further details and courses coming up at Sozin Classes, please also visit to the website www.sozineclasses.com. Thank you and have a great day.